Imagine living in a condition that controls your life every single day. Welcome to my 7-year battle with chronic constipation. Today, I will share my story and the lessons I learned along the way to help you shorten your journey. But before we begin, I'd like to share a quick disclaimer. The information I am going to share here is based on my personal experience and is not intended as a medical advice. Always consult with a healthcare professional before making any changes to your health regime. Hello, everyone. My name is Bimal Maharjan, and I have been through a long and challenging journey with chronic constipation. Over the past 7 years, I have faced physical pain, emotional struggles, and also went through the US healthcare system, and I was deeply disappointed with it. But through perseverance, a lot of research, experimentations, and studying, I managed to find a way to a healthier, constipation free life. My journey involved becoming scientist of my own body, taking charge of my health. I meticulously tracked my symptoms, experimented with various treatments, and learned to understand my body's unique needs. By doing so, I was able to recover and prevent future issues. Now, I am not just living constipation free, but also I am looking towards living a high performing life. The purpose of this video series is to share my experience and the knowledge I have gained to help to navigate your own journey with chronic constipation. Let's make this journey shorter and less painful to you. Before I dive into my story, let me give you a brief overview of what this story will cover. We will start by understanding what chronic constipation is and its complexities. We'll talk about importance of becoming detective of our own body and how to track symptoms effectively. We'll also decode the medical system, discussing how to navigate the doctors and test and explore various treatment options, including dietary changes, home remedies, medications, and more. Each episode will delve into specific aspects of managing and overcoming chronic constipation, providing you with actionable tips and insights. Whether you are dealing with constipation yourself, caring for a child, or a senior who is looking for solutions across different budget levels, this series has something for everyone. Let me begin with my early life and initial struggles. I was just 9 months old when I was declared dead. Yes, you heard that right, dead. It was due to severe diarrhea. My mother has told me this story countless times, and every time she tells the story, it still brings tears into her eyes. I was hospitalized in a government hospital in Nepal. And one morning, when my mom was gone to pick up a saline water for me, there was a doctor's round. And during the doctor's round, they check on my pulses and my heartbeat. They couldn't find one, and hence I was declared dead. When my mom came back, she rushed back to the hospital room with saline she had gone to buy, only to find my tiny body covered with a white sheet. The doctors had given up on me, but my mother didn't. She refused to believe that I was gone. She placed her ear against my chest and felt a heartbeat. With fierce determination, she grabbed a doctor and insisted I was alive. Eventually, a group of doctors managed to revive me, and I was always told they couldn't find a heartbeat and I couldn't cry no matter what they did to me. At the last resort, they folded my knee and with a small hammer whacked my knee, and then I gave a faint cry. I survived, but my digestive health was weak from then on. Throughout my childhood, I dealt with my upset tummy frequently. I had to make frequent visits to the toilet But interestingly, constipation was never an issue back then. And that changed in 2016 when I moved to the United States. Life brought new challenges, especially regarding my diet and my lifestyle. The transition to the American lifestyle wasn't easy. I started eating a lot of processed foods, fast foods, and meat, things I wasn't used to back home in Nepal. I traded fresh, home cooked meals for convenience foods. Along with dietary changes, my lifestyle became more sedentary. I was working long hours, sitting most of the time, and barely moving around. These changes didn't just affect my weight or energy levels, they led to serious digestive problems. The first sign of trouble was occasional blood in my stool, the strain during the bowel movement, or lack of urge to go, which I initially ignored. Over time, what I started as a minor inconvenience became chronic and became a painful battle with constipation. So I realized it was a problem. When I first began experiencing constipation, I didn't think much of it. At first, things were subtle. I noticed that quantity of my morning poop had reduced. It took longer to get less poop out, and sometimes I made sound during the time of the poop plop. The stool started to become larger in diameter with cracks on the surface and turned dark brown or even black at times. Ignoring these signals was easy at first because these changes were gradual and gradually worsening. However, as the problem escalated quickly, if did nothing, my stool would become more pebble shaped like sheep poop. If I still ignore it, it would get larger and dry with significant cracks. Soon enough, I experienced bleeding within a day or two from the first signal. The physical pain was unbearable. The larger, dry stool would tear my skin, causing intense discomfort and bleeding, causing me the fissure tear. And because of that, I also started developing hemorrhoids. And when I develop hemorrhoids, it's difficult to sit. And every time you sit on something, something pricks your bottoms. And it reminded me every time that I have trouble in my rectum. Emotionally, it was draining. The constant worry about when the next painful episode would occur took a toll on my mental health. And I could see the problems on my face as well. I started getting pimples all over my face, and that constantly reminded me that I have constipation, and that again exacerbate my mental health. So frustrated and in pain, I sought medical help, and my experience with the US healthcare system left me deeply disappointed. It was the December of 2016, around that point time, I first consulted my primary care doctor. He prescribed me a generic ointment and recommended diet changes and exercises, and he also prescribed me a fiber supplement. At that point in time, I didn't know about my root cause, what is causing it. It was just a casual conversation with my doctor, and even the response from my primary care doctor was very casual. You just recommended it could be a standard American diet, take fiber supplement, drink some water, done. And again, it's difficult to transform that information into action, especially when it I wasn't taking it seriously. However, also another challenging part about transforming information to action is about not about how, like when to drink water, how to take fiber supplements, and what was the root causes that causing it. Without those information, it's very difficult to take any action. And again, in that scenario, what I learned was, and also I learned later on was, primary care doctors are not specialists who know much about this. And obviously, he also referred me to a specialist, a GI specialist. And I visited GI specialist, and I found that equally frustrating. He quickly diagnosed my issue as an anal fissure, which is something I already suspected from my own research. The specialist was in a rush, didn't provide me with any new information. Heck, he didn't even ask me what I did for my job. I said all day long, a stressful job. So that wasn't even my part of our conversation. Again, he reiterated the advice to drink more water, exercise, and eat more fiber, but didn't offer any detailed guidance, which I needed to, again, I said earlier, take action. He prescribed me a special ointment that had to be made at an apothecary, and that cost 5 times more than the generic one. The generic one for the hemorrhoids cream my primary care doctors prescribed was $12, and the special ointment the specialist prescribed was $60. And that visit was expensive. And I didn't know why that special ointment was any different than the generic one, but just like felt to me it was an expensive option without knowing what true benefits were. Also, the visit was expensive by itself because of the copay and and then I felt like I was being treated as a cash cow rather than with a problem. And I followed up again with the doctor, and that was unproductive as well. And it was 2019, it had 3 or 4 years have passed since I started my first symptom of constipation. I've gone through a journey about, okay, I need to take some action. I didn't fully understood what causing it, how to manage it, but I have gone through, okay, I need to start exercise, I need to eat well. So I'm starting the beginning of the chains. But and also I understood my hemorrhoid started to heal, my fissure started to heal, but still I went to my doctor because in one of the annual visits they checked my ferritin levels and iron levels, and they said, okay, you got to go and uh, go visit the GI specialist. And when I visited the GI specialist, he recommended colonoscopy, and the word that was thrown in was cancer, and that scared me. That scared me. Therefore, I decided to get a colonoscopy done. And also, I was told that colonoscopy would be covered by my insurance as a preventative and it would cost me $0. And that was not the case. And there was two inflection point in my life. One inflection point was not getting a great advice from medical doctor from my doctors. And second was having to pay for colonoscopy when I was told it was free, and having to navigate the insurance systems and hours of calls. And when I was discussing the payments with these hospitals, doctors, and insurance companies, it once said to the collection offices, and the collection offices started calling me, and it was even more mentally disturbing. And that was the trigger point for me to say, okay, I need to not only think about me, but also have to think about educating other people. And it has been a couple of years of journey to figure out how, and Gus Ferry's a journey. And I'll talk about that more later. So let's begin to my low point. Every day started with a fear. Right? As soon as I woke up, the first thought that crossed my mind was dread of another painful bowel movement. My mornings were filled with anxiety, wondering if today would be another day of discomfort and disappointment. I would squeeze and stress my anus, clenching my teeth to push out even the tiniest amount of stool. The pain was intense, and often the blood would oozed from my anus. This wasn't just one time occurrence, it became my almost daily reality for 3, 4 years. Imagine starting your day like this, with dissatisfaction and frustration, knowing it would only get worse as the day progressed. Chronic constipation sucked the joy out of my life, replacing with the constant state of depression and fear. the emotional toll was intense. I felt like my life has been hijacked by this condition. My ambitions, my dreams, goals seem so distant. I am an entrepreneur. I want to start build a company. I want to create something, an inventor. But instead, I was trapped in the identity of a lifelong chronic constipation patient. At one point, I reached such a depth of desperation that I asked myself, is this my life now? Will every morning will be filled with fear and frustration? But I refused to let chronic constipation define me. I knew I had to find a way out. And that was my turning point. I realized that I couldn't rely on healthcare system alone. My journey through the US healthcare system had left me deeply disappointed. The focus seemed more on treatment than curing the root cause. And that what propelled me was the my colonoscopy experience. Not the procedure itself, but the ins and outs of it. Getting into the colonoscopy because of fear of cancer and getting out of it and navigating insurance, being asked to pay when it was supposed to be a zero cost, that actually made me really, really angry. And also decided, and that I thought was the pushing element that made me start more in the healthcare journey. Before that time, I was already starting to be healthy. I always, I, as I wrote in my book called Living Constipation Free, which I wrote in 2021, by 2020, I was already running. I was already doing yoga. Heck, what I could do was I could run 12 miles and come back and do 1 hour of power yoga. So 2.5 hours of continuous heavy exercise I was able to do by 2020. And my chronic constipation had almost gone away. So what I realized by then was if I continue exercising, eating well, and so on, I would not get constipation. But I stopped doing it; it would just come back. Then I was tracking my all the biomarkers that I had to. So that was the beginning of a change. But really about okay, I got to something for fellow patients around the world that was inspired by my anger of going through the insurance system, healthcare system, and having to pay for it. And I wished nobody even have to go through that and nobody have to pay for that. Hence, I want to build something along the lines, and therefore I was in a search. Now I found that solution to that search in the form of GutSphere, building a platform for every GI patients around the world. So this inflection points helped me decide to take control of my own health. I became the scientist of my own body. Then I started reading, researching, watching, experimenting, thinking, measuring, monitoring, and all of those together, I must have spent thousands of hours. So I'm a nerd and I've been an engineer. So I've studied science. Hence, I had the foundation to go about even reading scientific research papers, reading a ton of books, and then I learned things that my doctors never told me. I'll give you a very simple example, like the importance of drinking warm water in a squatting position first thing in the morning to trigger a bowel movement. And I know what people will say to this. There isn't a double-blinded, placebo-controlled, randomized control study to figure this out. But for me as a patient, maybe it's a placebo, maybe it's something, the act of physiology, maybe there is a simple tools that there is no benefit of doing a randomized controlled trial works for me, I will take that. And for me, the logical things to do is things such as a simple thing, which is drinking warm water in a squatting position and sometimes adding a little bit of salt and stretching and doing exercise start help me trigger a bowel movement. So these are things, right? It's very hard to get from the doctors, especially when this is a multidisciplinary problem. It's most of the doctors are very specialist. One thing, either they are too generic or too specialist, and also even if they genuinely want you to help, the current medical system is designed such a way that I I heard it from someone called who the author named Jonathan Haidt. He says structural stupidity. So because of this structural stupidity, they have very less time to engage with you, explain to you. The average time a doctor has with a patient in the United States is 8 minutes. And even 8 minutes also, they would most of the time taking notes instead of having conversation. And I empathize with the doctors as well. Hence, when I think about creating God's sphere, I think about complementing the clinical care so that that 8 minutes can be as productive as it can get. So when I go to a doctor, any patient goes to a doctor, I could say, "Hey doctor, these are things I have been doing. Here's a data point for you," so that doctor and also so that doctor know how to respond to that. And also I go prepare a list of questions that I want to ask so that I can ask very pointed questions. And also that when doctor says something, I'm informed enough, educated enough to ask a follow-up question so that that 8 minutes becomes extremely productive. And that's what my thought process behind even building this God sphere is about. Can I create a self-care system or clinical navigation system that complements the clinical care so that the patients get the best out of the both self-care and clinical care? Again, getting back to my activities. Again, I said the first step was to educate myself. I started by diving into every piece of information I could find about chronic constipation. I read medical journals, research papers, books, online articles, watched YouTube videos, and attended seminars. My goal was to understand the condition inside out. And I also began experimenting with lifestyle changes. One of the first things that I did was to adjust my diet. So I cut out processed foods, increased my intake of fiber, and started drinking more water. For the first time, I learned the importance of gut health and gut microbiome. And kid you not, I did not hear this gut health and gut microbiome words from my clinicians. It was after a year and a half, I started diving deeper. I discovered, okay, there is something called gut and there's a gut microbiome, and that has a lot of impact in the GI health and also other chronic diseases. And it's falls into all it is, especially in the concept of traditional and Eastern medicine. All problem starts with the gut, and it align with gut microbiome, align with that particular philosophy of medicine. And that wasn't told to me by my clinicians when I met them. So I started incorporating probiotic into my daily routine as well. And another significant change was my morning routine. Again, as soon as I wake up, I started drinking warm water in a squat position the first thing in the morning. That triggered a bowel movement. And that simple habit made a huge difference in my life. And I started noticing few changes. And obviously, the journey wasn't without its challenges. There were days when I felt discouraged and wanted to give up. But every simple, small victory kept me going. I remember the first time I had a pain-free bowel movement without the use of a laxative. The laxative I used was before the day night I would uh, take of natural laxatives. I would rarely take the pharmaceutical laxatives, but I was for the first time when I had in the morning, I had a complete bowel movement. It was amazing. And I think only people with constipation understand how happy one can get when you have a complete bowel movement, painless, and that comes out within minutes rather than waiting for half an hour or something like that. That's how I know when I see small victories that gave me hope that I was on the right track. And also started keeping a detailed health journal. I started recording everything from my daily food intake and bowel movements to energy levels and mood. This helped me identify patterns and make adjustments as needed. As I told you earlier, I'm a nerd, and fortunately, I have a software engineering background, and I think about how I can start create a digital formula or the framework to start recording all the biomarkers. When I was at a deeper problem, I went really deep about it. For example, what I did was there is a there is a tool. First, what I did was I used Google Forms. So what I can do was I create a form to measure poop, shape, size, effort, and so on, and then I exported that into a mobile app so that I can record it every time and use that. And later on, when I use a product called Airtable, which is a more better forms than Google, so I started measuring that. And the fact that I just simply started measuring made it easier for me to follow my diet, my regimen, and so on. Diet, regimen, exercise, meditation, and everything else I did. And why is it important to do all of these things? And I think you will understand why it's important to do all of these things when in the second episode, I'm going to talk about understanding constipation, what are the root causes. Then, then you will understand that, which even I understood that the many things can cause constipation. For example, lack of sleep, a lot of stress, dehydration, sedentary lifestyle, and obviously some people have the physiological and neurological disorders that could cause, and some people have good medication, the side effects of medication that take. So I'll walk you deeply. In my case, it was mostly the lifestyle and diet, and stress and lack of sleep uh, that was causing it. And because of that, I was tracking everything. I could start the process of elimination. Elimination, okay. What was causing it? Was not causing it? And that meticulous monitoring, measuring, monitoring, and understanding the patterns, understanding what would trigger, that was beginning to change. And when I continued for multiple years, for example, today, even if I traveled, last week I was in California, I came back. Used to travel West Coast multiple number of times, and every time I went there, about a couple of years ago, I would have constipation, and I would have bloat, bloating, and at the back of the mind, hey, I haven't had a good bowel movement. I used to have that, but now when I even travel, I do not get constipation because through the number of years, I have built up enough habit, enough physiology, and even my digestive system has changed that out. I have bowel movement even when the time zone changes. Again, this is now, but it wasn't this even 2020, 2021. Although I had made changes in the habits, the one of the most difficult thing was to staying consistent. Making lifestyle change easy, but sticking is the hard part. So there were times when I slipped back into old habits, but I reminded myself that this was a marathon, not a sprint. And every day was an opportunity to start fresh and make better choices. More importantly, what was very encouraging for me was when I started measuring things, the time interval between my episode of constipation, my strain, my pain, the interval started getting longer and longer. And that was a motivation for me. Hey, if I create the momentum of these great habit changes, I could live constipation free and pain free. And my life would transform in such a way that instead of worrying about this, having fear, having gone into emotional turbulence, I could focus on being truly what I want to do in my life. What I want to do in my life is I want to build companies. I want to create things. I want to help other people. So that has given me the physical energy and mental energy to transform my life. And also, when there is no framework, when I was doing these randomly, and also doing things random also makes it harder to build the momentum. And yes, after that, I stumbled into a framework. And obviously, the framework comes from my background, which is engineering. And after years of struggling, reading, and experimenting, I had an epiphany. And I realized that to truly conquer constipation, I needed a holistic approach and I needed a framework that helps me stick to this to habit and build momentum and give me a cohesive way to think about how to tackle this. And this wasn't just about finding the right medication or following a simple diet. It was about understanding my body as a complex system that requires balance and care. I started to think of my body as a machine with three critical components. This is input, processing, and outputs. And each part needed to function optimally for the entire system to work smoothly. So there is in software engineering, there is a there is a framework called 10-10-10. And obviously in software engineering, there is requirement, there is there is development, and there is a delivery. So here is a 10-10-10. So in other words, you can say input is the requirement, processing is the developing it, and output is the delivery of a software. So if you have one bug or one problem at the requirement stage, it takes, let's say, 10 minutes to fix that. And if you do not fix that problem and go to development and you find the same bugs, it's going to take 10 times more, which is 100 minutes. And if you do not resolve that bug in the development stage and you find a bug during the development delivery phase, it will take 10 times more, 1,000 minutes. And the same concept, and even I studied industrial engineering, wherever there is a problem in the machine, right? So you wonder what's the right input, whether input was right or wrong. And when I started thinking of body as the same machine, I was like, okay, pooping, I have a pain problem in a bowel movement. That's the output of it. So what's the processing? Am I doing the processing right? Processing right meaning what's the processing for the body? Processing for body is the, let's say, exercise, sleep, right? Lack of stress. So those are all the processing. If I'm not doing the processing right, obviously my output is going to be faulty. And and then I start, well, okay, can I make the inputs right? So inputs right meaning what is the one of things or input? Diet is an input, hydration input. One more thing which is surprising for people is to find out which I didn't get from my clinicians was QA. So there is a old adage in the uh, Indian subcontinent, and which is called "Don't make intestines do the job of your teeth," and that's all it is, and that's powerful wisdom. Therefore, importance of chewing. And I started doing developing this framework around it. And the framework, of course, is there is inputs, there's processing, and there's output, right? So in the inputs, let me get back to you. Like two important things. Diet. The food we consume is the fuel to our bodies. I began to focus on balanced diet rich in fiber, fruit, vegetable, and whole grains. And also fermented food, also healthy fats, and also fasting. It's not only about continuously feasting, but it's also about fasting so that I could give rest to my digestive system. So that was the entire like sort of thing frame about diet. And also hydration. Yes, drink more water is a common advice people get. But how to drink water? Why is it important to drink the first thing the water? At the same time, how much to drink water? And when talk about, most people say we need to drink 2 liters of water. Yes, I can drink 2 liters of water as soon as I wake up and do not drink anything at all. But what that's going to do is that's going to just going to pass through the entire digestive system and come out as a urine. That's about it, right? So how can I drink in such a way that it absorbs into my body, it lubricates my body more? So it's about sipping. And also another important idea is eat water. Yes, you heard it right. Eat water. That is going to increase more absorption. So, what is meant by eat water? Eat water meaning eat food that has more water content. So, for example, soups of when you have vegetables, or you have fruits. So those food have more water content, and that's my eat water. That's also going to lubricate and help in absorption more. Again, these are the concepts that I started getting because body needs the right fuel, and food is the right food is equal very important to get it. So if I get things at the input level, so processing is going to be easier, and then output is obviously I don't even have to think about that. So that's the mental framework I got. So let's about exercise processing. So again, even if you feel the body right, if you don't run the right way, it's going to fail. Right? Same approach as a machine. So therefore, how do I take care of the machine? Exercise. So physical activity plays a crucial role in stimulating digestion. I incorporated regular exercise into my routine, including walking, running, yoga, and also strength training. So exercise helped me keep my digestive system active and functioning properly. For some people, so I'm going to talk about the understanding chronic constipation. Some people do not get the urge at all. Some people do get the urge and cannot defecate. For those kind of people, it's something called motility disorders. And motility disorder has to do with when your nerves and the muscles are not working correctly. And for that part also, and the third one is pelvic dysfunctions. So there are multiple cases that cause the constipation, and the exercise is going to help because exercise is going to help in modulating that motility. So I'll talk about that later, but that's the reason exercise is super important. Not only about the it improves digestion, but also increases the motility part of it. And third part is, and another part about processing is stress management. So stress management has significant impact on digestion. So these days we hear a lot about gut-brain axis. So the problem in gut also is going to produce problem in the brain, and problem in the brain also going to produce in the gut. So there's a gut-brain axis. So in order to, and I was stressed, and stress can cause either diarrhea or constipation. For me, it was constipation, and or do so. So I talk about that vicious cycle. When I get stressed, I get constipation. I can't poop, and that causes me more stress. I'm in that vicious cycle and continue to think about that. So I need to break that. And the conscious way of breaking is through meditation, breathing exercises, and it can be various type of breathing exercises. And I incorporated breathing exercises and meditation part of it, and that helped me. And obviously, sleep is another factor. So lack of sleep. These is actually the culture is changing right now, prioritizing sleep, but there's also the culture of hustle culture, which demonizes sleep. Some people say sleep is just waste of time, and therefore people try to stop sleep less. I was one of them. There was one time I slept less than 6 hours, and then I started prioritizing sleep a lot, and that improved as well, improved my constipation as well. So again, input, right processing, and measuring. The third one is measuring the output. So keeping track of my body's response was key. I maintained a health journal where I recorded my diet, hydration, exercise, and bowel movements. This allowed me to identify patterns and make necessary adjustments to my routine. So I kind of created a flow chart in which, okay, this is the input, this is the processing, this is the output. So again, then I started doing cause and effect analysis, and while recognize the pattern, that helped me a lot. Now I realize I realized that I need to at least have 7.5 hours of sleep. I need to meditate. I need to exercise. For me, at least, yoga is helpful, but more helpful is aerobic exercises or more heat exercise. Maybe I'm young, so I needed that. So I'm realizing, like, what's the kind of exercise that works for me for my bowel movement. And more importantly, as I said earlier, without the framework, understanding what I was doing, the consistency was the problem. And when I realized, okay, I have this framework, consistency become easier. And I committed to these habits, and this became part of my daily life. And eventually, these became autonomous habits. And over time, these small changes added up to significant improvements. The stress-free life. So that was my outcome. And obviously, applying this framework to my daily life was a game changer. I started making small, manageable changes. For instance, I began my mornings with a glass of water, stretches to kickstart my digestive system. Breakfast consisted of high fiber foods, oatmeals, and fruits in the beginning. And also, now I've changed that a bit. Now I also take, because I'm exercising in the morning. What I also learned was after exercise, protein is important. Therefore, I started eating more eggs to protein and more savory breakfast, also to manage my glucose level for the entire day. So I'll talk more about that. And throughout the day, I focus on staying hydrated and eating balanced meals. For example, hydration. Now, when I exercise a lot, when I sweat a lot, I didn't used to take electrolytes. Now I start taking electrolytes as well. So these small changes, I could, it's called micro optimize, and I started doing more and more. And for most people, you don't need to get to that part. But again, having the broad pillars of things like input, processing, output, and if you change the pillars, I assume that most people will get huge benefits. For one more example is I also made a habit to move around regularly, whether it was short walk during lunch or full workout session. One small thing that changed was I made sure like every when I'm sitting and working for a longer time, I made sure I drink a cup of water, which I always place by my side. And if I'm sitting and working, I make sure I walk. And right now I'm standing and talking. So I have a standing desk as well. That helped a lot as well. So that I'm not putting a lot of stress on my bum. Sometimes which works for hemorrhoids and just walking around the movement. I'm going to talk more about one of series as movement as a therapy, exercise as a therapy. So how it helped. And these kind of changes, small changes add up. So in the evenings, I practice relaxing techniques to unwind and reduce stress. This holistic approach helped me maintain a regular digestive cycle and prevented constipation from taking over my life. So diet, hydration, exercise, and monitoring, and body as a machine framework helped me get out of this vicious cycle and live constipation free. And I know that this has to be a long term, right? I know for sure it's like getting off the wagon. I stopped doing these things. And I know from my data, when I stopped doing things, then it started getting, my poop started getting more coarse, more thicker. That's where I learned about Bistral stool chart. There are 7 categories, and a 3 or 4 was one snake shape, brown in color, effortless pooping is what I go out for. And then that's as a benchmark. And if I deviate up and down from it, when I and even down from it, I know I'm going to fall off the wagon. Then I get back to my habit changes in diet, exercise, meditation, and so on, and my poop starts becoming better. And that's how I know, hey, I need to get back to my great regime that I framework, follow my framework. So one more thing which I want to talk about is the stress. I don't know about other people. For me, I tend to overthink. At least I used to think a lot. And also about do a lot of what if analysis in my head, and that only worsens the situation. So what has really helped? And even before that, before meditation, I was doing meditation for a long time, but I didn't discontinue it. But what I tried was therapy. I went to the therapy, and for me, perhaps like there could be many other reasons. I feel like it's not for me. And then I decided to go for 10 days of Vipassana meditation retreat about 1.5 years, about almost 2 years ago. And that had a profound change in me to understand, to accept, and realize that stress, anger, jealousy, all those are one of the triggers. I need not act on it. I'll talk about more about my experience with Vipassana, but for now, what that meditation technique helped me, or that retreat helped me to understand the trigger, action, reward. Now, human mind are wired to act, react, and thinking is one of those things. And if I don't have to react, then that trigger will go away by its own. And that helped me change my mind and manage my stress. And today, I'm very comfortable with uncertainty, very comfortable with accepting as is. And obviously, I'm not a saint, but at the back of the mind, I'm aware when something stresses me out, I can zoom out and have a third person point of view, watch myself saying, oh, okay, this is stressing me out. And that mindfulness alone and the act of breathing deeply helps me come back to or controlling my stress. So that's been very helpful. So, my advice to all of you, right? I know as a patient, we wish this condition of ours go away instantly. I wish, or we wish, we can get a magic pill and and then it's get solved magically. We wish some kind of intervention, some kind of medication, some kind of therapy is going to cure us from our disease instantly. Unfortunately, constipation or chronic constipation, for that matter, any chronic condition, is not going to go away instantly unless we make a lifelong, long, long-term management. And obviously, there is a way to that. And my story is just one of them. There are countless people around the world who conquered their disease, who took their own charge, and as my mother says, who know about the disease more than the doctor. And I went and learned about this disease more than the doctor. In my case, I'm not saying I know about this particular disease for everybody else. What I'm saying is for my own body, for my own needs, as I live with my body 24/7, I need to know about my own body unique need and my disease more than a doctor. So that has helped me a lot. And I wish everyone the best. And I empathize with you all and say everyone can make small changes, begin with small changes, manageable changes, and eventually those small changes will add up, compound, and eventually make a significant changes in life. And here are some of the actionable tips that I want to give out before I wrap this up from my experience. Number one is start small. Again, begin small, manageable changes. For example, add an extra serving of vegetables to your meals, or start a day with a glass of water and gradually build up from there. Number two, stay hydrated. Make a hydration priority. Carry a bottle with you and set reminders to drink water throughout the day. Again, in my book, I write about this thirst cycle. What happens in our body is we would drink water when we get thirsty. But when we are thirsty and we do not drink water, our body learns that it's not going to get the water. Therefore, it gets used to it and it doesn't even give the trigger for of trust. So to break that, if we have alarm and we keep on drinking it water, it knows that it's going to get a drink water, and then naturally start triggering trust. Every hour we are thirsty, and that natural trust, responding to that natural trust will be adequate to get your hydration needs. But while you're constipation, when you don't have the habit of drinking, your body doesn't trigger at all. So stay hydrated. Number three is incorporate fiber. Fiber is extremely important because, and I'll talk you, they're both insoluble and soluble fibers, so which helps to create a bulk of the food, bulk for the stool, and also help you clean the intestines, and also helps to, you know, absorb water so the stool becomes softer. And also fiber is a food for a gut microbiome, that's why it's called prebiotic. And diversity of gut microbiome is super important. Normally normally fiber content. So in the United States, the standard fiber recommended is around 35 grams per day for men, about 25 grams per day for women. But because of standard American diet, people are hardly getting 10 to 15 grams per day. And there was a study done in one of the hunter-gatherers community called Hazard community. And Hazard community, one of the research papers found out that they ate around 100 to 200 grams of fiber per day. So the fiber is super important, and I think incorporate fiber and incorporate slowly. And fourth one is move your body. I mean, exercise, walk, whatever works for you, depending on your fitness level and athlete condition. If you can run faster, jog, or if you can run at all, walk faster, right? If you cannot do push-ups, then do some push-ups, then fully, then with the knee up, do strength exercising and do yoga or Pilates or any flexibility exercises, right? Basically, the thing is cardio, strength, and flexibility. What that means is strength, mobility, and 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 cardio, which is super important to develop and incorporate those things in your body. Just moving around is move your body at least. So people say 10,000 steps, and 10,000 steps, there is no evidence that 10,000 steps are important or not, but which is a good enough milestone to help you move around entire day. And the fifth is manage stress. So we live in a very stressful environment. And I think learning to manage stress is going to be an important skill. Unfortunately, we have tools. There are free tools to learn that. And regardless whether you are doing by yourself, there are a lot of apps, there are videos that can help you. So deep breathing techniques and meditation techniques, or you can go to a retreat like I did, or you can go to another paid apps. So incorporate meditation into manage the stress. And obviously monitor your progress. Keep a journal to track your diet, exercise, hydration, bowel movements. This will help you identify what works for you and what does not. And again, everybody is different. What works for me may not work for you, but again, the framework is important. Sometimes the details don't may not work out, but when you are a scientist of your own body, you're journaling it, and you start figuring out what works for you and what doesn't work for you. And obviously, when you have record of that data points, and whenever you visit your doctor, you can tell your doctor saying, okay, these are things I'm doing and I feel like this works for me, this doesn't work for me, how do you feel about it? Even if you're taking medication, when you say medication side effects, when you start monitoring and recording, you will have exact date when these side effects started, and that can help you identify, okay, this medication is triggering constipation or any GI issues, and then doctor will help you recalibrate medication or give something else, or again add something else to solve the problem, or there are different ways to alleviate the side effects. So that's again, monitoring and recording is super important. And seventh is be consistent. And being consistent is one of the hardest part. So that's another reason why I'm going to start. We're starting Guts Fairy is obviously making it easier to educate them, everybody, easy to empower everybody, and easy to make everyone the scientist of their own body, and easy to become consistent. So that habit change is one of the hardest things to do. And if people do not realize it, I'll challenge you the simple thing. If you are a right-handed person, try brushing with your left hand and try to make that a habit. Think, see, in this computer scenario, you are in control. There's no external environment. And you realize to make that even simple this change, it requires deliberate effort. And sometimes you do start autonomously start brushing with the hand. It takes certain time, dedication, consistent big brushing by the left hand. If you're a right-handed person, it requires deliberate effort and being consistent. I know that because I'm a right-handed person. It took me a month and a half to become a left-handed. I brush with left hand autonomously. So now I brush with my autonomously brush my left hand. Again, that's the reason why I'm telling you, changing habit is the hardest thing to do, and and being consistent, understanding trigger, making small changes, adding up, and monitoring, having a feedback loop, and which shows the positive changes and build momentum is going to be super helpful. So please be consistent. And finally, eight, seek support. So talking about shit, poop is poop. It's kind of quite shameful for most people. It's embarrassing, it's taboo. But one thing which I learned is, and I live by this motto, like ask for help selflessly and offer, sorry, ask for help shamelessly and offer help selflessly. So when have a problem, I talk about my problem shamelessly with people, and every one of them try to help you and support you. And obviously, some people just give you clever advices, and you need to take that pinch of salt. But mostly, when one knows that there are other people who have the same problem, it kind of a weird way is very calming. And when you learn that there are other people who are suffering through this and they're taking measure to get solve their suffering, and it's very encouraging. So seek support. So start small, stay hydrated, incorporate fiber, move your body, manage stress, monitor your progress, be consistent, and seek support. And obviously, at Gosphere, we are going to help you do all of these things. All right, let's recap what we have covered today. In this episode, we have delved into my personal journey with chronic constipation, sharing the physical, emotional challenges I faced along the way. We have highlighted the significance of taking control of your health by becoming scientist of your own body. From my early struggles and disappointments with the healthcare system to discovering a holistic approach, my journey has shown that managing chronic constipation requires persistence, patience, and a comprehensive strategy. Remember, this isn't a quick fix. It's a journey that involves understanding your unique body, making consistent lifestyle changes, and staying proactive. Your body is unique, and finding what works for you might take you some time, but with determination and the right approach and support, it's absolutely possible to live a constipation free life. When I mentioned that constipation hijacked my life, I wanted to become a creator, an inventor, an entrepreneur, and to lead a high performing life. I'm excited to share that I am starting this journey of creating gut sphere to help other GI patients live a high quality life. This test endeavor is a testament to my success and commitment to making difference in the lives of others. If I can turn my life around, so can you. So in the next episode, we will dive deeper into understanding chronic constipation. You will learn why it's more than just a physical issue and how recognizing the complexity of symptoms is the first step towards relief. We'll break down the myths, the science, and provide you with the actionable insights to help you start solving the constipation puzzle. So make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell to stay updated. Trust me, you won't want to miss the next episode. It's packed with valuable information that could make a real difference in your life. And also, I want to hear from you. Share your experiences with chronic constipation in the comments below. What have been your biggest challenges? Have you found any strategies that work for you? Let's create a community where we can support each other, share insights, and work together towards a constipation-free life. If you found this episode helpful, give it a thumbs up, share it with anyone who might benefit from this information. Your support helps this community grow and reach more people in need. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in next episode of Masterclass in Battling Constipation, a survivor's guide. Stay strong, stay informed, and remember, you are not alone in this journey.